And we are live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another OpusFlow webinar. My name is Simon, and I'm one of the product experts at OpusFlow, and I will proudly present to you our upcoming release, Automations Lite. And I say proudly because automations is one of my favorite modules. And that's not just because I enjoy creating automations. It is also because of the incredible impact that automations can have on an organization. And actually with quite little effort, as long as you have the correct critical approach to your workflow and your operations as an organization. So the current situation. OpusFlow is, in my opinion, one of the most advanced automation modules in the market. We can use everything within OpusFlow, everything that you do to create various automations. One of the things that we noticed, though, is that because of that, it becomes quite complex. It's very versatile and advanced, but you need one of the product experts to help you implement various automations. And with the change of our vision for the future, this is something that we wanted to change. So quite some time ago, we started development of Automations Lite, which is basically a stripped down version of our current automations, where we took the most important automations that are very relevant to almost all of you, and we try to make it as easy and intuitive as possible, with obviously the goal in mind to allow you to implement your own ideas into OpusFlow. Well, why? Obviously, we're in a dynamic market. The installation market changes quite a bit. And to keep up with the trend, we want you to come up with your own ideas and implement them into OpusFlow directly without direct need of a consultant. So, why are automations so incredibly valuable? I think it comes down to time, structure, and consistency. That is what automating your processes brings to the table. I don't like to place a direct number on this because every organization is different. You're all unique. Each one has their own workflow where you can implement automations in different ways. But the impact is huge, and it's probably more than you expect, but it's also probably easier to implement than you currently think. And that is also something I will talk about during this webinar. And another thing that makes automating processes so valuable to organizations is that it's not just about the time that you save by automating certain tasks, but it's also about things that you would otherwise not do. Because especially if you're a growing organization, you have a lot of ideas, a lot of things you want to improve in your business that you simply don't have the time for. And it's not just that automating processes can save you time, but it's also allowing you to do things that you would otherwise not do. For example, sending certain emails, follow-ups that if your business is growing may be difficult to maintain for each client. And automating this allows you to do more with the same time that you currently have. And it may also even save you time. So that is incredibly valuable. And it also brings a bit of structure, consistency to your workflow and approach to clients. And this is valuable because it will also present your organization better to your potential clients. It shows professionality and consistency. So what we're looking at right now is our new Automations Lite. It will be released next week. So after this webinar, you guys can prepare, think about automations that you want to implement yourself, and you can start playing around with it as of next week. What we see here is one of the automations I created previously. and I opened this to show you what an automation in OpusFlow can be and what you can do here. So in the simplest way, an automation is basically says, when something happens, do something. And the when is something you do within our software if you're using OpusFlow. So that could be scheduling a planning event, that could be changing a status, that could be an approved quote from a client. And all of these are starting points to do something. And what you can do are tasks, emails, tickets, notifications to make sure that your workflow stays consistent and streamlined. So what we see here is the Automations Lite tab. This will be released next week, as I mentioned. And what we see is a name, a location where the automation is saved, a possible description, whether or not it's enabled, and a version. And on the top right-hand corner, you can create your own automations. Maybe some of you have seen the old automations. It's quite database structured. And with the new one, we really try to make it intuitive so that everyone can use it. Any questions will be answered in the chat as well by one of my colleagues. And at the end of the webinar, probably around the last 10 minutes, we'll go over some of the questions you may have for this new module. So let's dive right into it. What do we see? We see a blank automation canvas. And just like I mentioned before, there's a when, there's a check, and there's a do this. Every automation starts with a trigger point. And by clicking on one of the, on the trigger event, the when, a dialog will appear. And these are the various starting points for your automations. These are what we believe right now are the most important to automate and structure your workflow. So that can be a project that is created, that can be a status change on a project, that can be an account manager that's assigned to a project or changed if you hand over a project to another colleague, a planning entry that's created, let's say a site visit or an installation. Maybe you move an event because you're planning, because a client couldn't go through with it. Or the planning changes status. Changing status would be, it would be either completed, placed on unfinished, maybe it moves from concept to final. And then we have quote automations, which would be quote issued to a client. It's either accepted or rejected. So let's just create one. I think that one of the most common automations that would save almost all of your time is everything regarding the planning. If you schedule a site visit, possibly you send an email to your client manually. Maybe you send them a message via WhatsApp, or you give them a call. Okay, I confirm that I'm going to be there next week. This is something I would always recommend automating. So we click on planning entries created, and our check if makes it specific. Here we can say that we only want the automation to run when a specific condition is met. Let's say I want my automation to trigger only if it's a specific planning type. This is very important. You want usually you want different email confirmations depending on what event you schedule. An installation has different context in it than a site visit. This allows you to give certain information to your client, make sure that they are also prepared for either the installation or the site visit. That will be planning type is, and each action that you click, you would specify it on the right-hand side on the dialog that appears. In this instance, I want to create an automation for when a site visit is scheduled. So, and you can basically read it like a sentence. When planning entry is created, check if the planning entry type is a site visit, and then we want to create an action. Well, usually I would recommend you to create an email template here, and that we can send to the client. Any email action can be defined on either planning or project, depending on what your starting point is of the automation. So we just create a planning entry. We want a confirmation mail to send. There will be planning, and I can choose templates. In a previous automation module, we would create the automation first, place an email action in, and then you can write the email. With the Automations Lite, you have the ability to create all of your email templates beforehand, and then afterwards in your automation, you can choose your template. For example, this one I created, site visit confirmation. So maybe you have someone on the marketing department that you want to make sure that all the emails are maintained. If, for example, your address changes or your phone number changes, you can just change the email template. The automation won't be affected. So template, and then I can choose a from. I can choose from a few variables or a static person. These are the users in your OpusFlow environment. In this case, I would choose the person who created the planning entry, so created by, and I can choose a recipient. I can choose either the contact email address, which would always be your client, and I can also choose multiple people here. So I can say I want my client to receive the confirmation mail, but I also want it to be sent to the account manager so that I'm certain that he will be there in time. That could be one automation. What we can also do is add multiple actions to your automation. So in this instance, I've scheduled a site visit and I've sent a confirmation mail. Usually in OpusFlow, you would have various statuses for this. So maybe you have your new lead, you have your follow-up statuses, and then we have site visit scheduled. If I finalize the automation now, I would create a planning event. The email will be sent automatically, but then I would manually have to update the status. So this is also a relevant addition to the automation. I want not only to send an email to the client, but I also would like to update my project status. In this instance, the site visit scheduled. So now my automation says whenever a site visit is scheduled, I want to send an email to the client and I want to update the project status to site visit scheduled. Now your project won't get lost. You know it's on site visit scheduled, and my client will get the confirmation email. In the top right corner, I have a save button, and it mentions to me that I need to give the automation a name. So I could say site visit confirmation, and I can save my automation. So now it's saving the automation, after which you can enable it. Each automation you create, by default, it's turned off. So you can have a quick look at it before you enable it for all of your organization to use, which I do on the right-hand side. Site first, site visit confirmation, and call attempt 3, which I'm also going to enable. So let's say you want to test out an automation. It's quite common for an organization to create various automations, but it's also, if you already use OpusFlow, you'd rather feel comfortable if you can test them out beforehand. What I would recommend is do this by changing your conditions. So in this instance, I have an automation where it says if the project status changes to call attempt 3, and the project type is solar panels, I would send an email to the client, call attempt 2 or 3. This is also a nice example of an automation that can give you some time, because if you're a growing organization, you have a lot of leads coming in, then you may give them a call. If they don't pick up, you're going to try again later. A very nice addition to your workflow would be to just send a quick email. Hey, I tried reaching you because you filled in a form on our website. We couldn't reach you. We're going to try again tomorrow. Maybe if you have time, you can always call us on this number. And this is going to improve your conversion rate drastically. especially in such a competitive market that we're in right now. What you can do is you can add more conditions. So now I would say project status changes to call attempt. And then I could say, for example, the account manager is, and I would assign it to myself. If I don't change anything now, I can save the automation and I can just test a few projects. If I don't touch any other projects that are live, actual client data, the automation would just run on my actions. And I can save it. After saving an automation, it also pauses it again. Make sure to enable it. And I'll quickly jump over to the project tab to show you what you can do with this. So call attempt 3, I already mentioned it. I have a quick workflow here that is just a template, something quite common. We have new lead, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call the client. If they don't pick up, I'm going to place them on call attempt 2. And this is relevant because this gives me structure. If I would only have new lead, this list of potential client is going to fill up, and I'm not going to have an idea how many times I've called each one. I may need to open each project to see if I placed any notes here, and this gives me structure. I call them every day, and after a set number of times, I'm going to stop calling, and maybe I even want to create another automation on no response closure, where I mentioned to the client, you filled in a form on our website. We've tried reaching you several times. We couldn't get a hold of you. We can imagine it to be busy, but we're also busy, so we're not going to give any more call attempts. Feel free to call us. We're always open to help you with any installation needed. And that way, well, it's not likely that they're going to call. You don't fully close the door. And even if this is just one on each 100 projects that still goes through because of it, it's worth it because you've automated it. It doesn't cost you a single second anymore from here, because maybe the client was just busy, maybe already looked into a competitor that he didn't have a great feeling with, and you're going to be the last person who contacted him. So in this instance, I could say, I'm going to move this project to call attempt 3. We had an automation for this, and an automatic email would be sent now. I can open the project. I can say called twice, tomorrow, one more attempt, just to give myself some more information. If I open the project now, there's also an email tab. Automations Lite works incredibly well with our new email module that we've released recently, and emails will be logged on the project. So call attempt 2 was just sent. It was sent to myself, and I can preview the email sent. Dear Simon, hope you're doing well. Let me know when might be a convenient time to stop by. And you can reply to this email or give me a call, obviously. So this is basically how the automations work. It's extremely intuitive. I'm not going to show you each automation. That just wouldn't be worth your time. I'd much rather talk about what you can do to implement automations yourself, because that's what Automations Lite is all about. And this is also something we often do in the implementation. But if you're starting to do them yourself, it's very important to be critical at your own workflow. So what I would always recommend is to take a step back, look at how your organization operates. And if you're using OpusFlow right now, I would say take your project statuses as a baseline and start writing down what happens during each stage. So you have your statuses, and you're going to be extremely critical and try to convince yourself that there's always room for improvement, because there simply always is. And your statuses may say new lead, call attempt 1, call attempt 2, call attempt 3. But really be specific on all of the tasks on each stage, because it's very easy to go over your own process in 15 minutes. But it's it's an installation and it's going to take longer. You're going to have a lot of tasks that you're going to forget about, specific tasks that you might not register in OpusFlow. And these are especially relevant to automate. But I would also always do a split your workflow when doing this into sales and realization. So you have sales, which is obviously very customer oriented. You're going to fight against competitors who are also going to be following up on the lead. So be quick. And your automations regarding sales would usually be automatic email follow-ups, reminders to yourself to follow up quotations, status updates, etc. Maybe a notification here and there. And during your realization stage, after a quote is accepted, you go into a totally different direction. It's more on making sure everything goes smoothly internally. So that will be registering your own tasks properly. Maybe you need to order materials, and you can create, for example, a ticket automatically after the quote is accepted to prepare a list of materials for this installation. This all comes back to structure. It's all about structure. It's all about consistency. And that's going to not only save you time because you automate certain tasks, but also because you're going to become better and faster at it. And you're going to register everything you do. So let's say one of your colleagues isn't at the office. You can hand over tasks to them because they're registered in your software. Very important. Split sales and realization because you're going to have a totally different mindset when creating automations. So that's very important as well. So I think we've talked about most of the aspects of Automations Lite. Obviously, I can start naming certain automations that you should create, but I don't think that's the goal here. The goal of Automations Lite is to give you the gear to create automations yourself and implement them into your workflow. Automating processes is it's custom, it's tailored to your processes. And if I'm going to tell you do this, it might not be perfect for you. So that's why you should really take a step back, be critical on your workflow and see where you can improve. And obviously, you can always contact one of your consultants, have a session of an hour, and you go through it together. Especially now that we have Automations Lite, this can be extremely relevant because you can sit down for an hour, talk about where your workflow can be optimized, and then you can implement it yourself. So you can start maintaining your environment better than ever before. I think I've talked about most of the things relevant for today. I'd like to use the last few minutes to maybe answer any of the questions you guys have. So I would say challenge me, come up with some good questions, and feel free to ask me anything in these last 5 to 7 minutes. Bart, why is location important in the overview of Automations Lite? It's not directly important to you. It is in some instances. So automations are saved in various regions, and we often change the location where automations is saved to keep up with certain speed. So we may ever in the future say, okay, we recommend changing your location or create new automations in a specific location. So that's why it's there. But for creating your automations, it's not directly relevant. How much time can I realistically save with Automations Lite? This is a very difficult question to answer. I could say, obviously, there's one aspect where if each time a client doesn't pick up the phone or you schedule a site visit, you would manually write an email. Well, if that takes you 5 minutes and you schedule 10 site visits a week, then it's 50 minutes a week. but it's also about things that you would otherwise not do. So if you're not going to send the email anyway, well, then it's going to be a totally different approach, because it may not save you the 50 minutes, but it's going to give you 50 minutes. Is there a limit on how many automations I can create in the system? At the moment there is. On release, every environment can create 25 automations. And we expect that to be enough for most of you. If you really feel like you need more automations, you can always contact your consultant, and from there we can see if we can up this. So we've kept it at 25. We expect this to be enough for everyone, and we go from there. Any more questions? This is the time. As of next week, everyone can do them themselves. If you have any questions, maybe regarding a certain approach to automations, feel free to ask anything specific. Can I trigger automations based on external data, for example, supplier updates? At the moment, you cannot. All of our automations, just like the old ones, are internal triggers. So this would be a change in something within OpusFlow. Maybe in the future, we will add the option to do something via an API. In the advanced automations, we can do a post API call from your automation. So once a quote is accepted, you can send an API post to an external software. At the moment, we're going to try to keep it as simple as possible to also make sure it's intuitive enough. Hola, buenas. How can I use this in Spain, and can someone train my team in Spanish? Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we're in various countries. So if you're a German client, if you're a Spanish client, if you're a Dutch client, there's always one of our product experts who's very happy to sit down with you to go over the module, maybe give you some tips and tricks here and there. Maybe there's also branch specific, market specific things to take into account in your country. So I would recommend either contacting your account manager or directly contact your consultant to schedule a call in. Have other installers, your clients, seen measurable improvement with this feature? Yes, for sure. Actually, a lot, and it obviously differs per organization, and it comes down to how much you're willing to structure and improve yourself as well. You need to have an efficiently oriented mindset, and if you do, you can see an incredible improvement. It can be up to 6 hours per project, maybe more, depending on how complex your workflow is, how much you need to do per project. And this is also something in the near future we might go a bit more in depth into with one of our large clients, eWonder. So we may do a webinar in the near future with them, and we'll most likely go into how they've implemented OpusFlow together with automations. Will there also be a migration from automation to Automations Lite so that we can easily adapt ourselves? At the moment, there won't be, and we don't expect to implement this. If you have any automations created in your advanced automations together with the consultants, you can create them again in Automations Lite. So if you have any automations that you can both create in the old automations and in the Automations Lite, we would recommend just pausing them on the advanced one and rebuilding them in Automations Lite. It's really easy. It takes a few minutes, especially if you know what you want. And then we're done. So it's a few minutes to set one, to create one in the Lite that you've already had in the advanced one. So it's 11:30. I think we've reached the end of our time. Thank you, all of you who've asked questions today, and everyone who've been here. The webinar is recorded, so you can replay it at a later stage as well. So it will be uploaded online, and I hope all of you have a great rest of your day and are happy to see our latest release come up. I'd like to give one last shout out to Olivier Smith, who took the lead in this incredibly large and complex project. He has also taken the lead in our original automation module, and he's one of our incredibly skilled developers that I just wanted to give props to. Thank you, guys.